Alright, so quick update on the new layout. I have all of my first step framework put together. I have my base put down and then my first layer of construction foam. And now I am essentially setting up the reference track for the rest of my layout. Now, for the most part, you can kind of put this together on SCARM or AnyRail and kind of get a good indication of how stuff is going to look, but I want my track to be good and straight. So essentially what I'm doing is setting up my rearmost track in a reference to a factory flat edge that came on the lower MDF and then this piece of construction foam on top of it. And normally, in most circumstances, the Kato re-railers are an excellent tool to determine how much space you need around the edge of your track. You can generally put these out, and that is the minimum amount of distance you want between that and an edge, so engines don't accidentally interact with the scenery around the track. In this circumstance, I need to get it just a little bit tighter, so I opted to use this right here. Right here is going to be my road crossing that goes off into the nowhere land distance that is behind me, and I'm going to have one of these on each side of this set of re-railers. So essentially what I did is I took off the section that was right here to match through here, and then you can just run this down the edge of the track, slowly gluing it as I go. And that's why I have ballast sitting right here. For the initial laydown of track, you can use wood glue or white glue or construction cements to do that. I find it's easiest to probably just use low grade hot glue, and it's okay in most circumstances. I find that it holds good enough in my situation. What I am running into is if your foam work is well put together and your base is good and solid, you're not going to have any problems with it breaking out, and it works really good that way. Other glues, such as white glue or whatnot, have a little more flex and will kind of work with some of that if your base work isn't really good. Hot glue, although it is flexible, in its hardened state tends to come away from the foam a little bit too easy, or the plastic in this case. There are like release chemicals in the plastic that don't necessarily make this stick the best, but that also makes it really good should you need to come in and change stuff or move it around. Add a little bit of heat, pops right off. So that's cool. However, for setting the initial straight track that you're going to reference everything else on, it makes for getting it put down and locked into place a quick process. So what I do is I take one piece of track at a time. I go ahead and lay a bead of glue on the back side. I let it set up for just a minute, and then I go ahead and lay a bead of glue on the other side, and then I come in with these right here and give it a minute or two to dry. And once I get the whole back area glued in place, then we'll start on the rest of the layout, and I'll go over how I get my track straight at that point. But just for reference, cheap Walmart glue and low temperature hot glue tends to work best for this. One, you don't want to overheat your foam. It will actually start to melt into this. Two, cleanup work is easier because if you're a 30-something man like I am, you don't have a whole lot of feeling left in your fingers from doing construction work and grabbing hot pieces of iron and that type of stuff throughout the years. So if this isn't really hot, you can actually come in and do all your cleanup work with your finger, and it's really not a painful ordeal. So we'll just go ahead and run just a quick bead of glue along here, kind of wiggle it into position, and then come in to the next piece of track and make sure it's aligned properly. And we'll just kind of hold that in place for a moment and quickly just run our finger across the bead there, and we'll let that set up for just a second. Also let our hot glue gun build some heat back up. Again, low temperature hot glue, these don't have the ability to just keep pumping out a whole bunch of hot glue for an extended period of time, so have to work semi-slowly. And there we are. We'll come in here and we'll just clean that up. And bingo bango, we're almost there. So I will continue to glue this down to this section right here, and then I will come back and we'll talk about how I'm going to power my layout in the short term so we can do some testing on this. Alrighty, so I went ahead and got the track laid down here. Now, going down the entirety of this, it's not perfectly flat, and I'm actually okay with that in the context of the rail. I want it to be perfectly straight. However, when it comes to the use case for this particular piece of track, the straights can have a little bit of up and down to them. This adds for some interesting views when I'm doing video work. You kind of get the cars moving up and down, and it's kind of like a false grade. So I'm okay with a little bit of that here and there on my straights, and I do have a little bit of that all the way down this. Now, most of this is actually going to be covered by a tunnel, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'm glued solid all the way up to right here. This crossing, however, I am keeping from being glued down, and the reason for that is in the short term. Normally I will be running this piece of track in this position right here, but for the purposes of testing, I'm going to use this power distribution point that I'm going to use for my upper level of track when the time comes to power this in the short term, because I'm not going to put in my feeders until I thoroughly test the main on this to make sure it functions properly. So that's going to be what I do over the next day or so, is function check all of this once I've got it pretty well in position to make sure everything works as it needs to. So this will go and be installed right here, and I see that I've got a clip in the wrong place. I'll have to fix that. But once that is done and I get all of this functioning the way I want it to, I will come back in, I will remove this piece of track and install this one and glue everything down solid. So we should be pretty reliable at that point. Let's go ahead and jump over to the full side view, and we will talk about how I've got this set up. All right, so let's go ahead and chat about some of the work I got done on the layout here. I have made a couple of small changes to my track plan. I ended up with an extra right-hand turnout, so I think I am going to install it right down over here. Have two tracks for unloading grain into, and you'll see that the track runs along there. I am actually, when the track is straightened up and in its final position and glued in place, I will come through and I will trim those off flush so it's a nice even end with the end of the layout, as well as I will come in right over here and add a small piece, probably from one of the leftovers over there, to finish that off and make that solid all the way across there. Now, I have not put in the top risers yet. There will be a board that goes across there, and then back across over the other side that I will be running my test layout, I guess is what I want to call it. That's where I'll have my grade set up, and I will be doing pulling power tests throughout that area. As you can see in the center there, I have an access panel cut in. When I start doing scenery, that is going to become a gravel quarry, and it will drop out from the bottom. That allows me to get up into the far back reaches of the layout to do cleaning, to find derailed, get to derailed cars, whatever I need to, as well as possibly place camera in the far back over there and whatnot. This layout is completely designed to be for my review process. So for the most part, the bottom area is for one, testing engines and their functionality, and I have lots of turnouts to run through. I have my upper areas that will be tighter radiuses, and then the very top for doing the pulling power tests. But I really want this to be a bulletproof layout, and that access panel just lets me go back, do cleaning and that type of stuff. So that's an important step for me to have in this process. So like I went over in my my AnyRail video and how I put this together, I really simplified the yard. Mainly, I got rid of the turn-off system and just went to a straight yard setup. So instead of being able to re-enter the main, you only can come in from right over here by the double turnout, and then we go directly into my yard lots of turnouts to run through, lots of possibilities for power failures, that type of stuff. All of these turnouts will have 3 points, except for the first one, let me say. We'll have 3 points of power going into them. So at the entrance, the exit, and then the turnout. Just so we have power everywhere and it is properly electrically competent. If units fail moving through these, it's not because the power is bad, it's because the pickups are bad. So again, going for bulletproof right here. As we move to the right, we see this is going to be just a secondary area for parking, as well as this area right here is my programming track. And right below this, I will have my ECOS. That's where I'm going to do all of my DCC controlling. It's gonna fit right there and kind of hide under the layout when it's not in use. I will also be using the wireless remotes to run this, so I can clean this up when I need it to be a nice clean edge over here. Otherwise, when I'm running the ECOS, I'll be able to just slide it out and use it. As we continue down, you'll see the 2 turnouts here. I have yet to start adding the second layer. That will be my next step. I did, however, go ahead and cut in my bridges. You can see them here. The double main bridge, and then I just built a quick pier and put in this right here. For the most part, this bridge is not going to be used very often. Mainly, this is just in there for looks. And then as we get down here, I will cut a small piece of track to finish this off. Should I ever move into another area, I want to keep this layout. I don't want to tear it down. I'd like to integrate it. I'll be able to hook in right here and be able to pass through on one of my turnouts over there. This will go straight through to my my very bottom storage track, and I could technically run right through this layout, hooking up to that part of the main line over there. So that is kind of the plan. That way I have moved up to 19-inch radius, so we are quite a bit wider, and it does come right to the edge over here. So that is just something I have not had any problems with derailing on this super elevated double track, so I'm really not worried about having this right there at the edge. It's also going to give me a bunch more opportunity to get good video angles for the tunnel section that I have right here. And then, like I showed earlier, I got the rear main all glued down, ready to be tunneled over. And I know it's not prototypical, but re-railers right there in the center of the tunnel area coming out of the big main on the backside where it's going to be difficult to get to. So should that happen, hopefully that will keep any of that from becoming an issue, as well as down there on the turnout, the re-railers hopefully will make the back section really reliable. So we will see what happens there. So I will go ahead and cut this off now, and I will see you guys next time. Hopefully I will have some of the upper levels over here and possibly some of the tunnel work done, and then I can start carving in the water feature that I hope to get on the layout here. So thanks for stopping by. I'll see you guys next time.